Morning. Mm, a lovely surprise. Beautiful energy today. Mm. I'm so happy to be with you in this beautiful gathering. So we'll get a little bit more time that we can spend together, which is lovely. How's everything?
Good morning. Are we diving straight in?
As you wish.
I just became really aware in this sitting that there's a real subtle doing with awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't really noticed that so acutely before. I'm sorry if you can hear the noise of my computer, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I think I felt like awareness was passive and neutral. But just this morning, I really noticed, the subtleness of the doing, the watching, or the noticing. There's an action to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it became very distinct from the just being, where you can't add anything. The moment you add something, it's not that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed wanting my body, wanting for that beingness to belong to the body.
Mm-hmm.
Like I noticed trying to like make it a sensation, that emptiness that was in the body. And then I was like, I was asking myself, does this belong to the body or is this everywhere? And so then it became, oh, this isn't anything to do with your body. Anyway, that was just in this moment. So.
Oh, it's fine. Beautiful discovery.
Well.
Before on the next subject, I want to talk about it. Something that you just shared, which is important. Your nature, your real self, in a way, is always aware without effort. But it's tricky because at the same time, it has all qualities put together. It's like tranquil, but at the same time, let's say alive and active and alert and attentive. But at the same time, it takes distance with everything, so it's neutral to everything. So it's like all qualities combined, and at the same time, no qualities can define it. So that's what is really important, these gatherings. Because to have the discernment from what is real and what is illusion, we need this dialogue. That's why it's so tricky to separate where the illusion starts and where it ends. Because at the end of the day, everything is you. Everything, every single little thing, you are that. Even the appearance of the notion that illusion might exist, even that you are that. That's why it's so tricky to come into terms what is duality and what is not, because you are both and beyond both. You know, you are duality and oneness and beyond both. So it's tricky to really take distance from even that experience of that, even that knowledge. Because you cannot really say you're not that when you are everything, and regardless of what is illusion, what is not, you know. That's what is important, the discernment first, the clarity around it. The self is everything, and it knows is everything. Even the power of the cosmic expression of the infinite self, imagination in its potentiality, even that the self knows that that is not the fullness of the self. It's just an expression of it, but it's not separated from it. It's not divided in duality, but the self knows. And that's important to understand, because this is the next step in our conversation. You are beyond awareness. You're not even awareness. You are beyond it. And awareness in itself is a quality that is a part of you, of course, but that doesn't define you either. And it's important to have the clear understanding that everything that happens can't define you. Nothing can define you. Not the most beautiful experiences, understandings, connections can define who you are. It's impossible to talk about who you are. We can talk about who you're not or what you're not. Then when you have a clear understanding that everything that you are not as the fullness of who you are, then it'll be clear who you really are, and then you'll be everything. Only then you'll have a clear understanding what it means, everything, regardless of your true nature, regardless of the reality of the self. But at the beginning, it's important to have discernment, humility, openness. And at the same time, it's tricky because you can reject, you can push away, you can say, I'm not that. It's tricky because you're everything. But you can say, I'm everything that is in front of me can't show the fullness of my amness, the fullness of who I am, even awareness. And it's tricky because you suddenly start to notice something so natural in you that you might call alertness, awareness, consciousness, or something. You might actually call it as a pointer, not as a definition, because nothing can define you, not even consciousness, not even awareness. But at the same time, is the discoveries are now, which I'm really happy about, are around the most beautiful, subtle resemblance or qualities that might point out the purest of your own self. Because it's natural to be, let's say, aware, because you're already aware all the time. There's no way you can't be aware, because that's your nature in a way. The tricky thing is what you're aware of. If you, for example, are aware of movement, any kind of movement, you're just aware of movement. You have never moved. You will never move, because you are beyond any notions, any forms, any qualities. Like I said, it's all only pointers. So if you, for example, notice a conscious phenomena called I'm aware, I'm not aware, you are beyond both. Otherwise, how can you know those phenomena are happening in front of you? That's the only thing. Just be as you are, be who you are, just be, simple as it is, because you're already that. You're already free, you're already complete, you're already that. Now, anything that happens in front of you, don't take it as if it were you. Not even awareness. Just take it as a pointer of something natural in you, which is I'm aware, already aware. You might be aware of really subtle things in front of you, which is great. Sometimes you're aware of big things in front of you. Great. There's gonna be a point where awareness will fall back or go in or dissolve into where it comes from. And then you will never be aware of anything. You will never see any phenomenon. Then you'll know that the reality of the self has blossomed because nothing exists, no phenomena exist, no me, you, there, here, there, up and down, in and out, no anything. And it's so self-evident that you are included in that reality as the self. But it's beautiful to start to see the subtleties and the naturalness of just be, just be. That's it. That has always been the key. Just be. Now, don't define like I am this, I am that. I am conscious awareness. No, you're not that. That's a beautiful, expansive, crazy definition. But still, if you take it as a pointer, that's great. If you take it that the only way you can share something that is beyond words, where you have to use something that can resemblance what's happening, let's say in it's self-revealing, with that understanding, then it's great. You can use any word. You can say whatever you want. If you have the understanding that anything that you're saying doesn't apply to you, then you can say anything. Any concept, it's fine. I'm consciousness, great. But you know that you're not that. You're just saying as a exploration towards grounding the how to say that in English? The evident, the realness, just the realness of you, that nothing that you say can actually be about you. You can never talk about yourself. It's impossible. But from that place of knowing that anything you say doesn't apply to you, then you can say anything you want. So it's a beautiful way to play, because sometimes people talk about as if they know, they understand, they have figured it out in some way or another. And it's tricky because the ego is so ingrained in that. But you can share things from the inner perspective. People, they don't have to understand this. It's not up to them. It's up to you with the honesty of the inner game you're playing. You can be so honest that you can say, well, I'm exploring being the self. And at the same time, you know that you're not exploring anything. It's just a pointer that something so pure is revealing itself, and you're so naked, witnessing the self reveal itself through you. But you can say anything. People might not get it, which is fine. The most important thing is your inner openness and humbleness and honesty. That's what is more valuable than anything else. People might have a different opinion or perspective. It's not up to you with them. It's up to you with the self. That's the only game you have to concern about. You are your own self. You are here to self-realize, self-discover truly in the deepest way. That's the only game you gotta care about. The rest in the outside might look differently for everyone, which is fine. Even for you, sometimes it's tricky. How do you express this? How do you explain this? It's like, I don't know. But you can just share your heart, open your heart, but with the inner knowingness that even anything that you're saying, anything that is unfolding from the inside out, let's say, doesn't apply to you ever. Nothing has ever applied to you. It's just for the sake of the game, the beauty of the game, the dance of consciousness in all its magnificence. But you are the witness of consciousness. So even consciousness cannot define who you are. And that's the beauty of this, because you are so simple living, so simple. You're not trying anything. You're not trying to discover anything. You don't have to let go of anything. Nothing at all. Empty, here, quiet, attentive, natural, simple, just flowing. But at the same time, the inner game is profound, deep, really deep, grounded in its simplicity. It's like you're touching the simplest of things, the most natural thing. But this natural thing its roots go so deep that are touching everything, because you are everything. That's how profound you are. Your nature is touching everything. That's what is tricky, to separate yourself from everything that is happening, because it is everything is you. But you have a clear understanding that everything that is happening in front of you can't define you. And then that's freedom. You're free to enjoy everything, because finally, nothing at all, not one single little thing can say or talk or show who you are. Not even close, nothing at all is close to your nature. I mean, space is immense. It's really big, it's space. Consciousness in itself is immense too. Emptiness is immense too, if you recognize its beauty. And none of those are compared to who you are. So who you are, no one can talk about it. It will never be found, because it's not a thing. Space is a thing. Nothingness is a thing in front of the real witness. Even consciousness, it can be a thing too. So who you are is like, what can you say about it? You know, you can't say anything about it, because it can only result in, I am that. You will never experience yourself as something in front of you. That which no one can talk about, the only result, the only way, the only result is that you'll see that you have always been that. So it's more about being than discovering, experiencing, finding, exploring, because you can't explore your own self. It has never been a notion, a sensation. That's how beautiful and natural. That's why you have never questioned or looked for yourself or finding yourself, because you have always been. You have noticed, let's say, searching. Yeah, you have noticed searching. You have noticed in front of you finding. You have noticing the conscious phenomena of forgetting or remembering. That's just illusion. It has never applied to you. None of everything that I just said has never applied to you. You have never forgot. You will never be enlightened. You are beyond those things, like so beyond. So beyond. You know? It's not a thing that you have to find, look forward to, because you have never lost it. You have always been. It's just a little small confusion that you thought you were something in front of you as if it were you. That's it. Just a little misunderstanding of misidentification. That's why everything is just stress, pain. The only way to get out of suffering, pain, and like mortal dying in all its aspects, real peace, real love, total freedom, like tranquility, presence, power, everything. You're already that and beyond that. So looking for it means that you just don't know who you are. That's it. If you knew the simplicity of what we're talking about today, the simplicity of just don't let anything define you. You just be open to that immediately. Everything that you were looking for is always been from when you're looking from. So why the search? Why want this? Why desire that? If you're everything. I mean, literally. It's not like belongs. It's not I'm talking about me that it owns things. No, it's not about that. It's about being. The self. The self is everything. You have always been the self. The fullness, not a part of the self, not a wave in the ocean. You have always been the ocean. And the ocean has never seen waves. The ocean has never seen waves. So you are the ocean that doesn't see waves. So what do you see? That's a tricky one. You have never seen this. You have never been the seer, neither the experiencer. Those are false notions in consciousness. Consciousness is just playing with itself. That's how simple it is. So the discernment that right now you are just open in the simplicity of being. That's it, just be. Just don't be this or that. And be rooted in that. Embrace your presence, your true presence, that which is beyond words. Because that's the only thing that you know for certain, that you are. The rest, we can put it into doubt. You know, from different perspectives, different opinions. But there's only one thing in your whole universe that you are so certain, that is doubt-free, and you will never be able to deny it, is that you are. The rest is just mind games, ego games, fantasy games. Now we're here to discover who's that one that has so much authority and presence and boldness that will never deny itself. Who's that one? And that one, if you look closely, and if you look behind the eyes, behind the mind, behind the perception of the senses, behind the perception of the body sensations, and anything behind it, you'll end up in the absolute as the absolute, which is beyond words. And that's the one that is free. Consciousness is not free. Consciousness is bound by its own tail, by its own game. You're beyond it. Consciousness cannot be free. It's bound by the self. You are the self. Just don't listen to anything that says otherwise. And just be. Allow yourself to be without looking for anything, without pretending anything, just naked, open, here. Without time, without past, without anything, without concepts of anything, without any notion that you are this or that. That's it. That's all. It has always been that easy. You know, has always been that easy. If you start from this really basic understanding, because you already are, you know, that's natural. If you just listen to what I just said, then everything is a joke. Automatically, everything is a joke. You don't need anything at all. Nothing at all. You don't need to let go anything, because it's impossible. You have never held on to anything. You have always been beyond and here and natural. You have always been free. So you don't need to purify nothing at all. You don't need to practice anything. You don't need to understand anything as if you were lack of something. It's so beautiful, the simplicity of this. If you just see that nothing applies to you. Everything applies to the ego, of course. The ego has to let go. The ego has to purify itself so it can experience expansion. The ego has to purify itself so it can experience presence and here-ness and not there-ness and beyondness. Of course, that one has to purify and let go and Jesus Christ, but it'll never be free. It can fantasize what it means to be free and replicate mind sensations and fantasies as if it were already free because of the expansion it experiences. But you are beyond expansion. You don't expand. It's impossible for you to expand. You're already complete. Expansion or not expansion doesn't apply to you. Applies to the fantasy, to the illusion. All of those things apply there, not to you. You will never be able to expand. Impossible. You're already everything. How can you expand to where you're already there? So let's say, for example, that you're going to expand to the edges of the universe. You're already in the edges of the universe. You're already there. What do you mean expanding if you're already there? You're already everywhere. There's not a place where you're not. So nothing applies to you. That's just how funny it is. How the illusion pretends to be you. The ego pretends to be you and tries to confuse you as if you weren't already everything. Even the ego, you're already that too. But you know that you're not that. It's just a little tiny little part of the whole game that you are not even aware of exists. You know, that's why it's tricky sometimes to make the distinction between the self as the only reality and the fantasy that implies that the self doesn't exist. Because even the notion that the ego exists is just a tiny little part of the game. So tiny. Let's say, for example, that I'm just gonna use an example of one of you here. Like behind Mahima, there's like a picture, you know, there's a picture. And in that picture, if we look into detail and we can, let's say like a magnifying glass, let's say that somewhere over there that we can't see is a little tiny little rock. Like so tiny that we can't even know that it exists, but it's somewhere there in the imagination of that little picture. That's what the ego, basic ego, intellect, memory does. It's something so tiny in the big cosmic picture of this game that you don't even know that it exists. And at the same time, it has a functioning. And we have believed that that has defined us. That's how funny this is. You look at the sand in the beach and one tiny little, how do you call that? Sand dust? I don't know how you call it in English. Huh?
Grain?
Grain, yeah, grain of sand. That grain of sand is a grain of sand is the ego in this cosmic game. And we believe we are that. Imagine how funny this is. Of course, the sand ego grain exists. Of course it exists. Everything exists. There's nothing that doesn't exist. The trick is that depending of your perspective, if you look from the perspective of what we're talking about, from the self, the ego doesn't exist. Illusion doesn't exist at all. It just depends from the point of view. And at the same time, you can't say it doesn't exist either. It just depends of which point of view you want to play from. From your natural state, which is already grounded in its most simplicity, without definitions, without looking, without searching, without desiring, without any intention whatsoever about nothing, just free and everything floating within you. But you know that you are that, and everything, let's say, in front of you can't say anything about you. The only gift, everything that is happening, the only gift that it can give you is to notice that it's telling you that there's someone there watching it. That's the only gift it can give you. That everything that is happening is being watched by someone. And then the question would be, who's that one? If I pay attention to this whole game, to this whole thing, there's someone aware of this. Natural. There's someone aware of everything that is happening. When you're clear, when you have the curiosity to really find out who's that one, everything will become clear. Everything. So simple. So simple. Amazing, huh? It's as easy as you just don't listen anything that tells you that you have a limitation or a lack. Because everything that is in front of you is pretending, saying, proposing that you have limitations. Then you need something. Figure out something. Fix something. Something's missing. Something. All of those somethings that is missing, none of those things apply to you. None of them. They have never applied to you. They apply within the game. Of course, if the body is sick, you do something to heal it, that's fine. But the body doesn't define who you are. Let's say that you have a perspective today and tomorrow you have another one. The difference of perspectives, even the understanding that you are growing within the game of the world, you're learning music or whatever, it's fine. Still, that doesn't say anything about who you are. It's about the game. It's about the body, its role, and its functioning within the game. In creation, that has nothing to do with you. So the body might learn a new language or anything new, that's fine. And that can create a subtle, I am learning more, I'm becoming more, I have grown more. You will never grow. It's impossible. Your true nature will never grow. But within the game, the perception can get purified, and the perception might look that it is growing or clearing itself out. But behind the perception is the real you, and that one will never be modified, I don't know, get better or improve or becoming better, more, nothing. So that's why it's really important to have the discernment that everything that is happening within the happening, in everything at the same time. Because that's what's happening, really. If you pay attention, let's say that everything that you're experiencing about the appearance of your individual experience, everything is happening for the sake of life. So you might say that life is just living itself through you, about the body individual, with its notions, sensations, emotions, and everything. Everything's happening, which is great, you know. So everything, the learning, the eating good food or taking care of yourself is happening within the creation, let's say, which is beautiful, you know. It's wow, amazing. Now the tricky thing is everything that I just said, don't take it to the realm of who you are. And then, oof, a different understanding starts to reveal itself. Because even though that everything that is happening within the movie, the game, the phenomena of consciousness, if you don't take it to the game of I am that, or that defines me, there's distance with everything. And naturally and immediately, there's a natural way of being, free of everything. And at the same time, you're still involved in your daily life, but you're involved from another place, one that is not constrained in the realm of mind, emotions, me, you, division, separateness, and all those things. Finally, you are realizing the evident, yeah, just being, you know, just being. That's it. That's it. My interest is for you to discover, let's say, where is that true self? Who's that one? How does it see? What is its reality? What's happening where it really is? What is really happening there? For example, let's say that we're outside a palace and the king is in its chambers. What's happening there? How does the king understand, see things? How does he rule? What is his presence, his strength, his experiences? How he became king? That's the curiosity. What's happening right there? How come he became who he was? Let's say, as an example, just an example. So my only interest is for you to discover who you are, and from that inner game, what is the reality of where you are really, where you actually really are. How do you perceive? How do you, let's say, feel? I'm just saying these pointers. It's impossible to talk about it. But what is your true nature? The qualities, what's really happening over there? Not what is happening in front of you. What's happening when you experience yourself as the self in all its glory and all its unboundedness? What's the experience? What the experience that like, you know? It's not like how does it feel, but that's the only words I can come up with. How does it feel to be that? How do you perceive? How do you experience everything as being you and nothing other than that? And for that, you gotta enter and go beyond consciousness to start to explore the depths of you. The rest is just fantasy. The question is, for who's the fantasy? Then even those words are trying to make sense something that doesn't make sense. It's impossible to make sense. No one will ever be able to make sense out of everything, of everything that's happening. It's mysterious. Even then, when you know, or the understanding of the self blossoms, even then there's a different kind of mysteriousness around it. But it's different. It's not about anymore about here and there, me and you, and all those false notions. It's more about the depth of you, regardless of the impulse of consciousness in its probability of manifestation. It's just different. It's tricky. With words, it's tricky. But it's more about around self and being. The mystery is more about now about being than creation, happiness, all of those things that are just limited compared to the source of everything, you know? And I'm happy that it's a small gathering, intimate, because we can really dive into truth. Not everyone is looking for this, and this is not really looking for everyone. One has to be really humble, really open, and a really divine spark had to be lit in. If that's the word. Hopefully I said it right. For you to really know and step out of this crazy dream and really wake up. That might look different for every one of you. Depends of the flavors of the self revealing itself through you. Its qualities pushing you in towards absolute openness and trust within and to you and to your own self, which is at the end of the game, is all about your own self, not about what's happening in front of you or someone. It's about your own inner sense of being. to have so much respect towards your own self that you will never accept any limitation as if it were you. And you will never impose limitations to your own self because yourself has never had any limitations. You just did it out of ignorance because you didn't know and you believe. You believe, that's it. No more. You have given this gift to you to finally break free from this crazy illusion of limitations and notions and concepts and ideas that are just as asphyxiating. I don't know how to say it. You know. So this is a gift for you. So you see, and the veil is torn apart by this moment. This is the gift that you're giving to yourself, the chance, the possibility that the veil will reveal itself as not real, and then you'll be free for sure. And you have created so many beautiful things, so you make sure it happens. Everything that you have gone through was perfect. It was necessary. But now a different understanding has to sit within your heart that everything that happened took me to now. It doesn't serve you anymore. Nothing that happens serves you from now on, regardless of knowing your true nature. For other things at the practical level, everything has its purpose, which is fine. I learned English so we can actually have a conversation today, but it's in a practical level, that's past, which is in a practical level. So some things have a use, but they're only on the practical level. Memory has only some use on the practical level. I have a really bad memory, which sometimes the practical level, I need my computer or my phone to remind me things, or my wife, because my memory is really bad on the practical level. But I don't really care. But that's the thing. Everything that happened only happened now for the practical level, practical understanding, how to move in life, how to make, let's say, wiser decisions in some things. Discernment has increased. But for awakening, true awakening, everything has to be let go of, everything. I mean, literally, everything you have to let go. Be so naked and empty that you don't depend on anything at all. Be so empty right now that you will not listen or search or go to anything for you. You don't use anything for you. And you are brave enough and you're strong enough. You're here. That just shows how big you are, because you're ready. The mind might say, I'm scared or I'm not ready, whatever, but you're not the mind. Mind is past. Mind is I. Don't listen to the I. Don't listen to the past. Don't listen to its proposals, notions, concepts. Then you're free. You're naked here. You're open here. So treat everything as something that was good for its time, but to enter fully and discover your unboundedness, you gotta be empty of everything. Why so simple? Because you're already empty of everything. You have always been already empty of everything. Right now, if you're honest and you don't give name to anything, if you don't use consciousness as a tool to be aware of, validate anything, even you still exist, you still are. You don't need to know who you are. You don't need to validate yourself. You don't need anything. If you don't use anything at all, automatically, there's a different quality presenting itself right now because you already are. If you don't use anything, you don't give name to anything, neither you, here, me, there. You don't acknowledge anything in front of you. You still are. You're here. And that one, free of notions, qualities, forms, names, that one is the self itself, beyond itself, and at the same time natural here, immediate, close, intimate. So simple. Nothing else is required. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to become anything. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to use anything. Nothing has to be clear. Nothing is lacking. There's nothing missing. You are that. And that is quiet, present, let's say. Just here. Just being. That one is already free of everything. You might say that it might be awareness, but you know that is not awareness either. You might say supreme consciousness, and at the same time, you know that is not it. You might say that it's already free, but you know that not even that applies to you. It's just to have a conversation, a clear, honest, deep conversation. That's it. That's why we use these ideas and concepts and pointers, just to talk about something that is so self-evident that we can't talk about because it's who we are. It's a funny conversation and gathering we're having. It's like we're talking about ourselves, the infinite. But you know that not even that is your identity. So it's a funny conversation. It's a funny gathering. Not everyone can manifest this type of conversation because it goes so deep within your heart that everything that is a lie around you will be burned. Not many can stand the heat or the warmth or this kind of love because they think they don't deserve it. They still have to work for it, search for it, improve their lives or become better. So then one day it'll happen. I gotta do more of this. I gotta do more of that, and then it'll happen. I gotta get better at this and this and this, and then it'll happen. Crazy. Just pure lunacy. Because we believe the I, the me. You're worthy of freedom right now, not tomorrow. Just stay as you are. That's all that is required. And don't follow any notion. Don't follow any thought, any threat, anything at all. Don't use the mind, the eye at all. Nothing at all. Just quiet here. Empty. Empty of everything. The rest is just mind games, fantasy games. And those games are for people to fall into the trap. You are not here to fall into traps. You are here to laugh at the traps. They don't apply to you. Just here to laugh. The mind might come up with a trap, or people might suggest this is the solution, and you just laugh. Sure, great. Because you know that all traps or all solutions or all proposals are for the ego, for the mind, and for the illusion. The self is beyond the game. You're not in the game. Like I said, you have never forgotten. You will never be free. That doesn't apply to you. You are already beyond those funny jokes. But it's funny. Sorry, probably tomorrow I'll talk less, but today I gotta talk. So this is just funny. Because the ego will defend its positions, its experiences, what it knows. And it will treat what we're talking today as something radical. Of course, it's radical. It's awakening, true awakening. It has to break all illusions, all limitations, forever and for good. Of course, it's going to be radical. Your true self will never accept limitations because it's already unlimited. So your true self will never be satisfied with a limitation. Like I said before, space, nothingness, consciousness, for the self is a limitation. I'm just cracking a joke. It's not a limitation, but you understand my point. I'm talking about the definition of who you are. Long time ago, I read a word pointing out to the reality of the self, which they call Brahman. And one day I read that Brahman was known as the devourer. That's the word, devourer? The one that eats. Eats all limitations. That's why it's known the devourer of all limitation. I was like, wow, that's interesting. What does that mean? It was long, long time ago. I was curious. Why did they give them that quality of definition of the name? As it were known as the devourer of everything. There's only one thing that, with the characteristics and things that I've talked today, there's only one thing that can actually mark those qualities, and it's all you. There's only one thing that checks all the check boxes, and is you. So ego perspective, we always say, well, I need to apply this, I need to clean this, I need to perpetuate this, I need to apply this, I need to, Jesus Christ. And from the ego limited perspective, what we're talking today, the simplicity of who you are already. Might be radical for the perspective of the mind. Of course, it's going to be radical because it's facing its extinction in a way. It's falseness. Don't listen. It's okay. Whatever happens, everything is okay. Whatever comes or doesn't come, that's okay. Nothing has nothing to do with you. Nothing at all. So be open to everything as it comes. Understandings, great. On clarity, great. Clarity, great. Just let it all be. Don't get involved with anything at all. Don't try, don't do, don't search, don't desire, don't look for. You don't need to practice, you don't need to nothing. No intention of anything. Without looking into anything, looking for anything. Automatically, you are free. If you don't follow any intention, any desire, any mechanism of anything, you're already free. You're already free from the false notions that are telling you otherwise, if you just don't listen. And this is what that will break the veil, what we're talking about today. That's the only way it will break the veil. The rest is just fantasy. It'll never happen. It's only by the self, through the self, in itself, that the self will reveal itself as the self. And there's only one place that actually happens, is in your sense of self, in your own being. It's the only way you'll enter the kingdom, through your own self. Not things in front of you. Things in front of you will always lead to confusion, more fantasy, more chaos, more suffering. Even in the fantasy of goodness and greatness, that is still fantasy. Opposites, ups and downs, heaven and hell, all of those things are within the realm of consciousness. You are beyond it. But the entrance is your own self, being the self. And that will reveal itself through you, as you. This is different. It can't be the same. So everything that happened before can't apply to this game. Nothing at all. So nothing in the entrance of your own kingdom, through your self-existing presence. You are the entrance, you are the key, you are the answer, you are the door, you are everything. It'll never happen with something in front of you. Ever. So that's a beauty, because you are here only to discover who you are. Immediate, natural, self-evident all the time. Easier than breathing. Easier than looking at things. Easier than everything. And you just gotta explore that. You. So I'm happy for you that you have created this this moment for you. I'm so happy for you, you know. The greatest gift is you. There nothing compares to you. Nothing at all. Believe me. Nothing. No matter how beautiful the angels are singing at their realms, they're just trying to push you back to say, hey, you're the witness of us. Nothing compares to you. But it reveals when you stop looking for. I have the curiosity where you're looking from. where you're listening from, as deep as you can. How do you make sure you go as deep as you can without acknowledging or owning nothing that happens in front of you as it defines where you are or even who you are? Because it's so clear, if you pay attention, that there's something so pure that no one can talk about. And there's someone right there that can recognize things as in front of it for the sake of self-discovery. Then when the reality of the self blossoms or breaks and burns completely the division, then you'll know. But before, it's so clear that there's someone there that is distant and watching and noticing everything in front of it. Thoughts, emotions, concepts, mind, body, sensations. If you go deeper, you'll see, like I said, consciousness, awareness, emptiness. All of those things are being noticed by something or someone. And you can keep on going in the most crazy consciousness game phenomena. And then you'll reach a point that there's no more to see. And the only result is to be that, because you will never be able to see yourself. Ever. So why start looking for? Have more curious about where you are, and you made more real something in front of you as if were you, and that's it. Then it's like, oh, that was easy. I just had, I did it, how do you say that? I just had to stop defining I as something that is in front of, whatever that might be. And you take that as the doorway to you. And with your best of your ability, if you just listen from your heart, from yourself, with openness, your job is done. No more doing. I'll finish with something and then whatever you want to share or ask. Long time ago, I read a quote by a poet that struck me when I found its existence. It's Rumi. I know many people know him, Rumi. And he said something quite marvelous. Of course, everything he says is amazing, but of the conversation we're having today, he said something like, that one who put me here will take me out of here. Something like that. I don't remember the exact words. I was like, that's amazing. Who's that one? You know, who's that one that put us here, let's say, and it's his responsibility to take us out of here. It just depends of how open you are to that. And the best way, simplest way, is to stop pretending that you are something other than that, and then the game changes. All of those pointers, even Rumi pointers, took you here. Rumi is amazing. It's just a pointer. You really want to experience the source of the inspiration of all the great beings, all the great poets, the love of love, the longing of longings. Stop pretending you are not that. You are that looking at stuff, things, love, everything.
lovely. Thank you. I have a question, I think, relating to maybe it's to do with surrendering to that non-definition. Perhaps I have some kind of barrier or fear of some kind of expansion or dissolution, dissolving. And it's that I somehow have to stay anchored into the framework of living. Or yeah, perhaps it's to do with not existing. I understand when you're speaking that we are all of that, so there is nothing ever to lose or gain in a way. It's all as it is. But the experience of the physical body, yeah, that's one part of it. But I mean, I got very sick once, 15, 20 years ago on a meditation course where I just kept observing myself. But I actually was becoming quite ill with pneumonia. And I just continued to observe myself. And it just became into a very dark place where really there was nothing further. And it took me some years to completely recover. And it was a fascinating experience, but I've sort of not wanted to move that close to that again. When you were speaking, I can't exactly remember, but for me, I was feeling a curiosity that observes and witnesses, that is more free than other. Yeah, there was a curiosity, and then I just sensed again, where is the framework? I'm just feel, yeah. And then you said that Rumi quote that brings us in, also brings us out. Will take us out of here as we are brought in, and so perhaps it's a surrender. I feel that you have to have some kind of desire to hold on to living, to not dissolve completely.
That is true.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, but people call living suffering. It's like you pay the price if you want to live life through the body, through the mind, and through the ego. The ego is bound by the senses and the entertainment. But if you have a clear understanding that desire and entertainment is the other side of the coin, and the other side of the coin is suffering and death, because that's the other side of living, death, and people call that living because you can't take one from the other. Suffering is ingrained in desire. It's just the other side of the coin. You'll feel great, and then suddenly you'll feel awful. That's the game of the duality. So, like I said, like life is the result of the sum of desires. Which is awesome. Like if you know me, or people that know me closely, I live life fully. Fully. I ride my bike. I eat really good. Like living. The only trick is like that doesn't define who I am anymore. Everything used to define me. Now life is just amazing, free of expressing itself. But at the same time, if I don't go for a ride, I'm happy. If my body's sick, I'm happy. If I'm dying physically, I'm happy. I don't really care. It doesn't define me anymore. Before it used to define me. But at the same time, I take care of my body. I eat well. Sometimes I eat really bad and I eat like 2 kilograms of ice cream nonstop because I love it. Doesn't matter anymore. It's just everything is stopped being about me, let's say. Now everything is just an opportunity for life to express itself in a different way, you know, more pure way. The experience that you mentioned about that you had a rough with the body is because the observer has to be transcended. The observer is just a beautiful quality within consciousness that can create chaos. Consciousness in itself is heaven and hell too. Consciousness is heaven and hell. The only way to break free from that spell is to break free from consciousness. And that's another funny conversation because you will never disappear. Ever. It's impossible. You will never die. Ever. It's impossible for you to die. You have never been born either, so why will you ever die? It's impossible. Both of those things doesn't apply to you, to your real you. They apply to the body and the fantasy of consciousness, of course. So if something will dissolve, is the idea of who you think you are. But let's put another perspective. This has happened many times in your life and you didn't pay attention to this. For example, you were a 15-year-old beautiful girl, let's say, as I were having a conversation with you. Suddenly, let's say you became a woman. You know, in that process, it was natural. The little kid disappeared. The teenager disappeared. You know, it was natural. It blossomed. It happened and you didn't even were aware when it happened. It just happened. And naturally, let's say you blossom into the next beautiful expression of you or the next experience of life, which is adulthood, let's say. I'm just putting an example. It happened naturally. Now, the dissolution of the idea of who you are, it'll happen naturally too. You won't dissolve. You will never dissolve. What is going to dissolve is the false identification of who you think you are, because you can't be that. But from that perspective, from the point of view of the one that, for example, when you were a little beautiful little girl, from that perspective, you might say, I don't want to grow up. You know, I don't want to grow up. But suddenly it happened. It happened, you know? It's the same thing, kind of like the same thing. This is so natural, but at the same time, it'll happen. I remember one day I heard, but it's true. If you are destined to really fully wake up, even that you try not to, you will be pushed to, it'll happen whether you like it or not. If you're destined to fully wake up, there's nothing on earth that you can do to prevent it. And the opposite applies too. If you're not destined to fully wake up because of arrogance, no matter how much you try, you'll never awake. So seeing life with those both perspectives, you just gotta come into terms that this is the game of the self. It's not about you, me, here, and there. It takes you so into the realm of you don't know anything about anything. You think you have made decisions. You have never made any decisions. You were forced to make decisions. If you're really honest about every single little moment in your life, every single little one of them, if you look at with a magnifying glass or a microscope, every single little detail of everything that has happened, you were involved with it. You thought you were. That's a fantasy. You thought you made a decision. You thought you made a choice. That's impossible. Choice doesn't exist. The false me has never existed. So when on earth we have come up with the idea that we actually chose something that doesn't exist, that's just fantasy. Even the experience that you have had, you had to have them. It wasn't optional. Even right now, the question that came out of you, you had to expose it. You didn't have a choice either. It's just the self revealing itself in all its glory, in all angles, in all places. So you become aware that it has never been about you. But that's what the false notion of the ego says. I chose this, I did that, I experienced this, I experienced that. No, 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 no. The self is the one that has always experienced everything. It has never been you. It has always been the self experiencing everything. But from the perspective of the self is different, of course. That from the perspective of the fantasy of a you, everything is chaotic, suffering, I mean, a living hell. But it's just a fantasy, misunderstanding. But that misunderstanding, because the power of the light of the self is going through a lens of darkness, it can create a living hell because of its power. But it's true. And something else. The only moment that surrender can apply is when it's full and complete. When it's not full and complete, it's not called surrender. It's just managing my daily life as I see fit. You know, true surrender is when you recognize there has never been someone there to surrender to. Surrender doesn't exist because it implies two things. I surrender to something. Really. If you pay attention, that false me has never existed. So, but that's what the false me creates. It creates his counterpart or his opposite. The false me believes itself to be so tiny, separated from source, let's say, and then it creates and projects something in the opposite direction of itself. And it creates God and all these things. Even God is a projection of the ego mind. But that's what the ego mind does, to make sense out of things, because it will face the abyss if it doesn't have a ground to stand on. But you just have to laugh because you're not the ego, you're not the mind. If something is being, let's say, destroyed as a notion or a concept or an idea of who you think you are, you're just watching something being destroyed. You can't be touched. For example, one day I was watching on the TV. This is the first time, I was a little kid. This is the first time that I saw a big building being, destroyed. I don't know the word is like, the experts, engineers, put dynamite in some places that the building just fell perfectly. And with buildings on the side, I was like, how on earth did you do that? Imagine the knowledge of the engineering knowledge that you can blow up a building and it falls perfectly. Pim, 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 pim. And I was watching that on TV and I was like, wow, that's art. I mean, that's art. You know, it's just not just engineering or destroying bricks. That's beautiful. But I was watching something being shaken. I wasn't shaken. I wasn't being destroyed. You know, it's the same with the ego and its concepts. It's just watching a really fantastic, crazy, artistic movie of buildings collapsing. You're not collapsing. Like I said, if you don't take anything to you, it's like, whoa, what a show. You don't die. The body dies. The body gets sick. You don't get sick. Which is great, you know, it's fine. The body gets sick, it's part of nature, you know, and it's beautiful craziness. But that has nothing to do with you. If you don't take anything to you, you'll see that you have never been touched by anything. Even the darkness of places. You are that light which you see the darkest. That doesn't mean that you are living darkness. You're just watching a really crazy movie that has no entertainment with colors. That's all. You're just watching absence of colors. but that doesn't apply to you. But that's the tricky part, because people are identified, or they think they are identified with the body, with the mind, and with consciousness. And when you think and you believe that you're identified or those things apply to you, oh man, of course, everything applies to that one. If you believe that everything is painful, you'll experience pain, because that's the false I justifying its false reality. If you don't believe anything, if you don't identify with anything, nothing applies to you. Nothing at all. But probably in that moment, if you had the correct approach, the direct understanding, or probably you came across with this kind of conversation, probably in that moment with the proper guidance, it would have been done. So you notice that you have never and you can never disappear. Something in front of you can disappear as something of a fantasy, of reality. Of course can disappear, but you can't disappear. And this is important to understand, because no matter what happens in front of you, no matter the colors, no matter the absence of colors, no matter the sensations and emotions, it's fine, it's beautiful. That has nothing to do with you. You are the witness of it all. And the funny thing, the only one that can't and doesn't know how to live, let's say, a proper natural life is the ego. Because you don't acknowledge the ego, you don't acknowledge yourself as I. Believe me, you'll know how to really live here. Like, it's amazing. But it won't be the false you with fears, anxieties, apprehension, desires, and lacks. It'll be the self, clear as the sky. And the same life, in the same room, with the same guitar, the same. It'll be through the gaze of the infinite. Natural, simple. I do cooking, I wash my dishes, I wash my clothes. It's just all the same, but it's different, because the experience is not about the body anymore. It's about everything at the same time, free, encompassing, embracing one, one. The same moment, but just different eyes. And life is amazing, takes care of you, it flows, it's magical, it's not apprehensive, it's just a beautiful, mysterious movement of desires of everything manifesting itself, for the show. So it's like, it gives you so much rootness into now. Because the one that fantasizes, lives in the time, space, here and there, that one dissolves. And then this moment is so vivid and so now. But you know who's that one which is watching it. And there's a big difference. And at the same time, so natural. Now is life, let's say, life is living itself free of control, attachments, fears, and all of the anxieties. And the false actor within the play has dissolved, but you don't dissolve. And it's so natural. It's like, and you don't experience yourself in the body either. You don't even see the body. That's the funny thing. Body is a notion, is a concept too. Even the world is a name, is a notion, is a concept too. When you get rid of all notions, names, and concepts, life lives itself fully. All of life, not the body in life. This persona in work, in the job. No, it's everything at the same time. Full of wisdom, full of love. It knows what it has to do. It knows, for the sake of everything. Not the sake of you, because that's a limited perspective that sometimes people have. Like, everything I do is I have a beautiful life. If you pay attention, everything that is happening for the sake of all of life. You just, the gift to you is just to to have the gift to see that. It has nothing to do with the personal person-body interaction with the world. It has never been that. Its needs, its desires, its lacks. It has always been life as a whole. But if you pay attention, we have given the magnifying glass to see things closely, you know? And that makes the assumption that my point of view is for me to have what I want. If you remove the magnifying glass, everything is for everything, for the sake of everything. And that's natural. That's simple, that's evident. You know? That's how simple it is, really. But also the desire, there are two ways to explore desire. One is depends on where you're at and what's coming for you. For some people, it's important sometimes that the desire to really be free is burning so hot that no desire is more important than that one. That desire will burn all desires. Daily life desires, they're fine. I'm not talking about those desires. Those are fine. You want to go for a hike? Go. Do you want to enjoy beautiful gathering with your friends? Perfect. You want to travel? That's beautiful. Those desires are healthy. You know, connect with your loved ones is healthy, is beautiful. Go for a walk with your dog is beautiful. Improve your work. That's beautiful. It's healthy. It's life, you know. But if you take it deeper and you take it about, if you take desires that apply to you, you becoming who you are, your well-being, if you take it to a little deeper realm, every desire is counterproductive, you know, because they're coming from the false I. Only the false I desires. So in the realm of the inner game, it doesn't have to feel, it's not about feeling the desire to be free, and no, it's not about that. But just to be clear, that the simplicity of what I'm saying, the more important thing is to be free. Nothing is more important than that. The rest is fine. Live life. That's not up to me. For me, is to explore the inner game, and the inner game is like the desire to be free has to be more important than anything. All desires in the inner game, but then that desire has to drop it aside, because if you pay attention, it reveals someone that desires something, and that's the ultimate, the final game of a desire, to show that there's someone there that desires something, and that's the one that you gotta be aware that you're not, because your true nature, like I said, is free of all desires. Talking about your identity, like I said, I still live life. I love my daughter, and of course I desire the best for her, but I don't desire anything according to her identity, which is different. It's just a subtle shift of perspective. It's the same, but it's different. All desires, if they don't create more grooves, anxiety, and they don't apply into the realm of who I am, let's say, that inner game, leave them aside, and that's fine. But in the inner game, it's really important to explore and to be aware of that one, which desires. Then the game changes. Because you don't desire anything. You're already complete. You're already complete. You don't need anything. And then it's clear that any desire that comes has nothing to do with you, and you're not attached to it. You're not chasing it. You don't try to manifest it. Suddenly, life starts to blossom in a different way. And it's evident when you play with life or just let life play itself. I mean, in the involvement of your body apparent individual in the game, you know? Subtle differences, but profound and big differences.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I still remember when I was very little, the very, very, very first time I identified with the body, with the mind, with the identity. And when this first I perception identity appeared,
Mm-hmm.
the very first thing that arrived was, that's a mistake. It should not have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But where is that perception of that is a mistake, it should not have happened arrived from?
From the same place of the perception, from the one that perceives. The one that perceives is the mistake. It's not the perception, it's the one that perceives the perception. And that's the one that came naturally without noticing it, but immediately blur
Yes.
the evidence of who you are. But it's the one that perceives the false you, not the perception itself. Because without the perceiver, there can't be a perception.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's the knot. I said it in one of the meetings, I don't remember even one, but that knot is like a dust in space. And this dust, if you put a microscope into this dust and let's say like magnifies, you'll see something funny. It's a knot that is wrapped up between consciousness, time, space, I-ness, and from there, all fantasy happens. But it's like, it's so microscopic, atomic, let's say. That's why it's impossible to find it. It's so atomic. I don't know how it is beyond atomic, but you know the idea. And right there, if you have clarity with your own light, you'll see a knot of a few things. Consciousness, I-ness, time, space. And from there, fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
How you break the knot? Follow your own light. Bring back the light to your own self. And don't acknowledge anything in front of you. So if we give clarity of this knot and we separate the ropes as the example of the knot, you remove one from that knot is consciousness, I-ness, me, concept, time and space all at once. Just break it. Break it as a puzzle. You break the pieces. And then you understand that you're already beyond all of those things. Otherwise, how can you see them? The tricky one is don't acknowledge them. Don't give it a name. And don't use them as definition of for you to use for you. You don't use them for you. They don't apply to you. But from that little dust of things happening within the dust, if you really look closely, what's happening within the dust, you'll see those little qualities happening. So just remove the dust from your eye, and then it's clear. And it always ends up in this beautiful direction. To whom? You have never identified with anything. That's just the appearance of this little dust. This little dust was in the eye that you thought that I identified with, let's say, the me, consciousness, and all of that. That dust creates the false notion that there's one there that identified with something. You have never identified with anything. Illusion has never applied to you. Forgetting has never applied to you, ever, ever. But in that microcosmic microsecond, a dust in the eye makes you believe that you might be blind, let's say. Makes you believe. It's a belief. It's a belief, doesn't mean it's real. It's just a belief. Who believes? And then you're like, I don't know. And then behind that eye is emptiness.
So even this idea of there is a mistake, it's just a belief as well.
Exactly.
Mm.
Because who decides is a mistake or the opposite of a mistake? Who decides? Who sees that? Like I said, the perceiver. Because the perceiver is watching opposites. Rightness, wrongness, let's say. Mistake, certainty. I don't know the opposite, but you know. So the problem is not this, is this one. And you are behind this one. You know? And then all these false, right, wrong, white and black collapses because they don't apply to you.
Yeah, I was still believing in this idea that it was a mistake.
Yeah, and that's how you discover the subtleties of the subtleties of the subtleties, you know? If you go really deep, everything is around beliefs and desires, beliefs and desires, deeper beliefs, deeper beliefs, and deeper. But then it's so easy because all of those beliefs, no matter how deep, beautiful, abstract, or concrete are, not, doesn't matter, they apply to someone that believes, someone that desires, someone that has experienced something, someone that has understood something. You know, there has to be one in order for all of these things to happen. This one is false, it doesn't exist. It is not you. But that's why if you remove this one, everything, ciao.
Yes, absolutely. The I appeared at the same time of the idea that it was a mistake. Before that, nothing existed.
Correct. And so fast you become already more empty, you know, just again, quiet again. Already more free immediately because something that seemed to apply to you, hey, it doesn't apply to me, the real you. But that's how beautiful this game is. If you just don't listen to any belief and anything on top of it, then you end up with a false I, because from this I, everything is added on top of it. And then this I can't exist by itself. But the most ingrained subtlety of this I is wrapped up in consciousness, time, I-ness, here-ness concepts. That's the one. Don't acknowledge it. Don't identify with it as if it were you. And then the not will unravel or undone on the, you know what I mean? It will be done and it'll be clear. And then the game will start to change naturally because it'll be clear now. Easy. So easy. Great questions.
So actually, even this little dust in the eye, it's not a mistake neither.
No, just wiped it out. Gemma?
I'm realizing how as humans, well, I'll own it for myself, but I think it's a general thing. There's a sense of the you and then something greater than you, whether it's God or the universe or whatever. Like, I think it's human nature to think of yourself and then something bigger than you, whether you're praying and asking for something, or like lately I noticed there was two things that happened. I was in a situation where I was wanting to ask someone for some help, but also there was another situation where I was full of gratitude and wanted to thank someone or something for this thing that had happened. And I was like, well, there's two. And so it can't be. And then that left me feeling like, that's a tricky one to let go of, this being, this thing that we think of as greater than us. It's tricky to let go of. But then what I'm realizing, like during our time together now, is even this sense that there is an inequality, that there would be something greater than me, that there would be more or bigger than, or more ethereal, or because it exists in opposites, right? But there are no opposites. So that's kind of dawning on me. That's a weird one to let go of. Yeah. And then it kind of leaves you like, well, which one am I? You know, like, is there just no God full stop, or whatever you call it? Or is it just that I am that?
There's only I am that.
So even the God, the universe, whatever we think of as greater, is just part of the game. It's just part of the creation. That
Fantasy within the game.
and it's so weird though, because it's funny, like it. I don't want to let go of there being an idea of someone to thank for something. You know, it's your attachment to part of the duality, the good part of that. Thanks.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. And this is a tricky, well, all answers are tricky to answer, really. All is tricky, you know, but the moment that there's not an I, there can't be a you. If there's not an I, you can't be here and something over there. Because in order to over there someone, there has to be someone here. That relationship, you know, that subject-object relationship or situation or phenomena, okay? And that has always been the mistake. There has never been subject-object relationship. That creates the fantasy of two, even the fantasy of one, because even the fantasy of one has to come from two. So the result from two results into one. And that's still fantasy. One is still a fantasy because it's related or the conclusion of something else, you know, and that's still within the fantasy even, you know. And it's funny because the moment duality ceases, the words can't express its beauty. It can, because at the same time you can, for example, sometimes I read quotes or I hear a song, I cry. I cry. It's just like potent, it shakes to the core of the beauty of being. But it's not like something shakes me, or it's not a power from me. It's tricky. The words cannot really fathom the non-dualistic perspective. And at the same time, you can't say that the real God, the real God, okay, the real, is not something that you ask, neither something that you crave for, but there's also a reverence within the self, for the self, for the love of the self. It's tricky, you know. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. But first, like when you see any notion of two, break. Don't ask. Because you have never been separated from us, the self itself. You know, and then it's a different journey, you know. It's, and there's no words that can explain the experience of that as being that, you know. It's tricky. It's tricky. Possible.
I used to really like this phrase that says, there are no others. But I'm noticing that even that, if there are no others, that means there's still a one. So that's still, like, it's still misleading.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's pointing to oneness, it's still false. Damn it.
I know. That's why the trick and the most simple thing is stay quiet, be empty, and just enjoy the show and watch. That's it, because there's nothing that you can come up with that can actually say anything about the most pure experience of self. And only the self will reveal itself in the most beautiful, mysterious ways. And you can't say anything about it. You can say everything the opposite of what's happening, just to try to explain something that it cannot be explained, you know. It's tricky. It's tricky. That's what I always try to encourage, to just everything we explore, everything you explore is just as a pointer. Nothing is absolute. The only thing that is absolute is you as the absolute. That's the only thing that is absolute. The rest, tricky to talk about. Even everything is just tricky to talk about, you know. Just enjoy. Just enjoy. How's everyone? We'll meet again later. Yeah. I'll help you. Gavin, try it. He's trying to, I don't know. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarkhan. I'm afraid I'm been late again, so I missed the beginning part. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I think you're saying be empty. I can comprehend that, but I'm just utterly confused by so much stuff. You know, if I attend something like this, I want to be able to walk away with something in a little parcel, and it's not like that. It's not like that at all. And Mahima keeps telling me, oh, well, you'll gather what you need from it. And it doesn't seem to be, I can't sit down and write a few lines about what I've been listening to. It comes and goes so quickly that, I mean, it's no criticism. It's just my I just can't understand it. And it's something that Gemma was saying made me realize that we evaluate what we're thinking about with reference to what we already have been taught. And to a large extent, what we've got in our thinking mechanism is subconscious. So there's a bigger job uncluttering the subconscious, presumably. I mean, I'm not unhappy. I'm very contented. I'm very blessed. I'm very, yeah. But there's always this assumption that there's something more. What is it that I'm missing? You know? And so that's why I come to these meetings late, because that's my way. It's, well, I look forward to the next session.
And I understand. I just want to say something about this, which is beautiful. Why is almost impossible to understand, for us, a better, or the word that you just used, because you have been taught that everything that you discover or explore, the mind can use it for its benefit. And that's why it wants to understand it. So it can apply it, it can recognize itself that is feeling it, all these things that I can make sure that I can apply it for my daily life, that I can control it for an outcome, you know? So that's why these gatherings are so pure with you, because you will never be able to grasp it for the mind's benefit. So you can apply it and manipulate it for some outcome. Why? Because this is yourself, your own self talking to you, saying, I'm not a thing. I'm not a thing. I'm not a Coca-Cola can that you can go to the supermarket to buy it. I'm your own self. I'm you. That's why it can't be understood or understood. It can't, because you are not a thing.
It's intangible.
Exactly. Why? Because you are the one that is looking at things. The one that is watching me, the one that is just hearing, the one that is just here present, existing, that one is unbounded and limitless. That one. That's why it will never see itself. It will never find itself, because it has never been a notion, a sensation, a body, nothing. It has always been the seer of everything. But this is a next pointer, which is fascinating. Let's say that you have doubts. It's fine. But the doubts are pointing to a doubter. You know? The doubts are fine, but they're showing that there is one that doubts. If you look closely, the one that doubts is not you. You don't doubt that you are. You can't deny that you are. That is doubtless. You can't doubt that you are. You are. You will never be able to deny yourself. You can't. No. Try it. And that one that can't deny itself is the self itself, free.
Right.
You know? That's why I know it's tricky with words, but your heart knows, and that's the only thing that matters. Your own self is finally, how to say it, hearing the language of the self. The mind will never understand it. I said it just to finish. I said it in the last meeting with the students in Spanish, but I give it another perspective. For example, there was a moment that I had to practice English. I didn't have a choice because I had to move from Mexico to the United States because of a crazy thing that happened, you know, because of my dad. I had to leave the country. So when I was in the United States, I had to practice English because I had to. I didn't have a choice. And there was a moment when I arrived, I didn't understand most of people who were talking, and for me were just like blah, 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 blah. I didn't understand anything. But then time went on, and then I started to understood one word, emptiness or something. There was some understanding happening, but the rest it was just bitty, 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 bitty. But there was a moment that something clicked, and then I was able to understand English. You know, there was a moment that, wow, I understand English now. And from there, it just developed. You know, it's the same thing with the language of the self, let's say. Many people will come and they won't get anything great. But suddenly your heart, your being will suddenly start to, I don't know, like understand from a deeper level. And suddenly everything will start to become clear. As you were learning another language. This is the language of your soul, of your own self.
Well, that's absolutely very, very good analogy. And thank you very much for that, because it puts it all into a nutshell. It's like learning to read. And you learn individual syllables, and it means nothing, but then one day you can look at a page and it has some you can comprehend it. And I suppose, well, I really look forward now to listening to you a lot more, Sarkhan, because that process is obviously going to happen, but it hasn't quite gelled yet for me, but I know that it will. And that's lovely. So thank you for that. Yeah.
I'm happy because he already started. Just enjoy the ride.
It's a lovely ride too.
I'm glad.
Yeah. I'm surprised you could learn English in America, because they don't speak English. They speak something else.
I know. Imagine the challenge.
I can't imagine. No. All the best, Sarkhan. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm glad it helped.
Yeah.
Everybody good? So you can rest and enjoy your day. Okay. Well, love you. Thank you for today, and see you in a little bit.
Thank you.